Hi, I'm Shawana from IgniteFinancial.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to customize a QuickBooks Online invoice template that's on brand and gets you paid on time. Start by clicking on the gear icon, then Custom Form Styles. Now QuickBooks Online provides you with a generic invoice template, and you can open it by clicking on this drop-down menu and then Preview PDF. Honestly, the generic invoice that QuickBooks provides doesn't look terrible, but we are going to zhuzh it up a bit with a logo, branding colors, and specifics your clients will need in order to make sure that you are paid on time. Click on New Style and then Invoice. There are 3 different tabs you're going to work with: Design, Content, and Emails. Let's update the name of this template to Hourly Invoice. Then we'll click on Dive In with the template. QuickBooks provides you with 6 different templates. This is the Airy Classic. I'm going to end up sticking with that one, but let's look at the Airy New, Modern, Fresh, Bold, and Friendly. Pick whichever one you want. I'm going to do Airy Classic. Then you can add your unique logo. And we'll click here. And QuickBooks allows you to add up to 10 logos. So I'm going to end up doing 2. An oval logo. And then I'm going to add a square logo. And click Save. Now you can change the size of the logo as well as the placement of the logo on your invoice. You can hide it, or you can show it. You can add a pop of color. yeah, you can do all that. Okay, so QuickBooks gives you a few options to choose from. Let's look at a few of them. And then here you can add like your specific branding colors. So I'm gonna add mine. You can choose a different font. There aren't that many. You get 4 fonts: Arial, Courier, Times New Roman, and Helvetica. I like Helvetica, so that's what I'm going to go with. And then you can adjust the font a little bit. 8 points, 12 points. Let's stick with the middle and go with 10 points. You can change the page margins. I am going to leave them as is. I think they're fine. And here, if you want to print out your invoice and put it in a window envelope, you can do that. And if you want to use letterhead. And then at this point, you might want to preview your invoice. So let's take a look at it. Preview PDF. Okay, now it's starting to look like something. Now let's take a look at the Content tab. This is the header section, the table section, and the footer section. Let's start from the top. The company info settings apply to all form styles. They tell you this at the top because this is really important. If you change this information in the business name, phone, email, on down, this company information from here to here, then it will change across your entire QuickBooks company. So be very careful about changing this. That said, I'm about to change it. You can check these boxes to show these items on your invoice. And personally, I don't include anything on my invoice that I don't want my clients to use. So if I don't want you to call me about a bill, then I'm not going to put my phone number on the bill. But you can reach me via email. And I also like to remove things that aren't absolutely necessary. So unless this website was something related to payments where clients can come on to the website and pay their invoice, I'm going to go ahead and leave that off. You can change the name of your invoice here. So if you call your invoices bills, then you can say this is a bill, and then it changes up there. but I like Invoice. So I like to distinguish between if I'm sending the invoice and asking for money, then it is an invoice. And if I'm receiving a request for money, then it is a bill. And that's how QuickBooks pretty much distinguishes it as well. So I'm going to keep calling this an invoice. Form numbers are just what they sound like. And I think it's a good idea to keep them on because it does help you and your clients distinguish between different invoices, especially if they're like the same amount. And then some companies even have a policy where you have to have an invoice number and it cannot be the same one as the previous invoice number. And that brings us to using custom transaction numbers. I can't think of many good reasons to use custom transaction numbers, and that's just basically where you're creating the form number instead of letting QuickBooks automate that task for you. So I personally would say in most instances to leave this box unchecked so that QuickBooks can name forms for you automatically and you don't have to worry about coming up with one more thing. Down here, the billing address is grayed out because regardless of whether you enter a street address or not, there will be something in the bill to field on every invoice. I mean, how can it be an invoice if you're not asking somebody for money, something for money? You can turn on shipping, like so there's a ship to address, and if this doesn't apply to you, then don't check it. But there are some businesses where the billing address is different from the place that received the services or the products. These terms are the payment terms. So this net 30 essentially means that your client has 30 days to pay your invoice. QuickBooks gives you the option of removing the due date of the invoice. I don't advise that. I would say leave the due date on there because why would you want your customer to have to calculate the date that they owe you? Just tell them, hey, you owe me on this date, and then there's no confusion. Now, custom fields we're not going to get into, but they are another way to capture information on your invoices. So some people will use custom fields for things like a PO number if their customer requires it. You might use it to keep track of the salesperson who's responsible for winning the business. And I personally like to use them to put a proposal number in there so I can reference something as to, hey, this is the document or the contract that supports the amount that I'm billing you and what I'm billing you for. Let's preview it. Okay. I honestly don't think it looks different than the way it was before, but humor me. All right, so let's click on the table. Now you can include an account summary on your bill, on all of your invoices by clicking on show on invoice, and the account summary will appear. And it kind of reads like your credit card bills where they tell you this is what you owed the last time you received our invoice, and this is what you've charged since our last invoice, and this is what you paid, and this is what you now owe us. So that's what an account summary is. I'm gonna exclude that from the invoice, but if you like it, I love it, include it on your invoice if you want to. Down here, we're gonna get into adjusting these columns. And the columns right now are date, activity, quantity, rate, amount. Like activity is driving me nuts. So that just cannot stay. I cannot leave that like that. I mean, activity. Come on. Anyway, so let's click on edit labels and width. Dates, fine. Activity, I'm going to change that to product service. You could say service if you're exclusively selling services. Matter of fact, you know what, I'm going to do that. Let's go with that, service. Walk on the wild side. And then I'm going to call this description instead of activity. And since this is an hourly invoice, I'm going to call these hours instead of quantity. All right, you can see all of that changed over here. I'm going to exclude the date column. That's one thing I don't need. I can include that in the description, the data service. I'm going to include the description here under the product. And now that I've checked off what I want to include on my invoice, I'm going to adjust the columns. I have not figured out how this works, honestly. Like what is the science behind this? How do they do it? How do they make a decision as to what's what? Let me see. Oh. Okay. Let's click on show more activity options. You can group activity by day, week, month, or type. Let's say month. And then you can subtotal the groups. You can collapse activity rows. And QuickBooks tells you right here that if it's the same rate and description, then it will collapse activity rows. And you would want to do something like that just to make your invoice look neater. I'm going to click on that. Show progress on line items will add a column that shows how much you've invoiced your client from an estimate. And you can check show markup on billable expenses if you're feeling especially transparent. Click on show billable time. This will show billable time entered on your invoice, so you choose whether you want to include the employee name as well as their hours and rate. Now let's move on to the footer. But you know what, let's preview it first. See how it's shaping up. It looks pretty good. I'm liking what I'm seeing. You can check or uncheck here to show a discount line on your invoice. And do the same for deposits. Check this box if you're using progress invoicing. You can include an estimate summary on client invoices. This keeps your client updated on how much you've invoiced them for a project. And the estimate summaries will appear at the bottom of invoices if you check this box on this template. Message to customer on invoice. Here you can update the text that appears in the bottom left corner of your sales form, except for estimates. I'm going to add some invoice payment instructions here. When you create an invoice or sales receipts, this text will show up by default, but you can edit it on the sales form later when you create it. Down here, I like to add a policy reminder. So if you have a late fee policy, a cancellation policy, or refund policy, add it here. There's a character limit, so try to be brief. I'm going to leave the footer text centered with an 8-point font. Let's take a look at it. How dare you? I'm going to click on done. But now you get to see me go back into the invoice template we just created. I'm going to go, see, here it is. This is the standard generic, and then this is the one we just created. I'll click on edit and go back over to content. I still want to preview it. Again? Anyway, we'll be able to see it soon enough. So let's go ahead and click on emails. Now the preview window shows you what your client will see when they get an invoice or reminder from you. QuickBooks reminder you again, this setting applies to all form styles. So if you click on full details, it's going to apply to every form. So you can select full details if you want your client to see everything that's on your invoice in the body of their email, or you can choose to only show a short summary by selecting summarize details. Regardless of which option you choose, it's a good practice to attach a PDF of the invoice to your emails just to make it easier for your customer to view and save a copy of their actual invoice. The standard email is the default email your client will receive with their invoice. You can customize this message when you get ready to send an invoice to your client, but I like for the standard email to be so generic that I don't have to mess with it for each client. I'm going to delete the subject and body of this email so that I can add in my own language. I'm also going to change this use greeting I'm going to leave it as dear. Call me old-fashioned. But I'm only going to include the first name. That's a little bit more casual. Now we're going to repeat that process for the reminder email, but I'm going to use a different subject and message. You can see the changes in the preview window. Here's the reminder email, and here is the standard email. Click Done to save your changes. I'm going to preview it again. I hope it shows up. Here it is. Okay, good. Okay. It's not bad. While we're here, let's make this our default invoice. And you do that by clicking on Edit and then Make Default. Now let's see our new invoice template in action. Click on New, Invoice. I'm just going to make an invoice real quick. Here's the message on the invoice. You can edit that if you need to. If I click on Customize, I can change the template for this invoice. Notice how the new invoice automatically uses the hourly invoice template. You can change it back to the standard template here. Create a new template or edit the one you're currently using. Let's click on Print Preview to review your invoice before sending it. All right, it looks good. So let's click on Save and Send. Here's a generic email account that your invoices will come from, but QuickBooks does give you the option to link your QuickBooks Online account to your Gmail address so that your invoices are coming from a more familiar email account for your clients. And here is where the standard email comes into play. Now QuickBooks does give you the option to edit the subject and body of your emails before they go out to your clients. One thing that I like to do is add the client name to the beginning of the subject, just so that I can easily search my inbox for email communications like these. Now, if you have QuickBooks Payments activated, you'll see down here an option to select bank to receive payments via bank transfer or credit card payment. This is a sample company file, so I don't have that activated. But if you have QuickBooks Online and you choose to activate QuickBooks Payments, then QuickBooks will give you the option of allowing your customers to pay you electronically before you send the invoice. So the only thing left to do is proofread your email and then click Send and Close. This is a sample company file, so I can't send emails, but you get the idea. So that's it. Please like and share this video if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.